Silence. The planet was now just a burned-out sphere covered in scars. The physical fight was over, but a deep, terrifying sense of failure hung over the Krill. Admiral Xylos, a master of logic, stood motionless. His victory felt like a curse. The numbers confirmed their triumph. The human defense was entirely gone. Yet Xylos felt a profound sickness. He had conquered a tomb and invited a plague. Commander Rion had behaved against all logic. He refused to surrender. He sent a final, disturbing statement before his bunker was vaporized. The message was just two ancient words, Carthago Delenda. He commanded a deep search. What was this forgotten city? The historical records that returned made his three hearts stop. He hadn't won the war. He had awakened a nightmare. They feared not their guns, but their past. Silence. A cold, deep, and heavy silence fell across the black void of Sector 7. This small, desolate planet, now just a burned-out sphere covered in scars, was supposed to be a simple, routine victory. It was marked for conquest, a mere footnote in the Krill Empire's great expansion. But as the only lights left were the emergency beacons of the colossal Krill command vessel, the oversight, a terrifying sense of failure and dread hung over the bridge. The physical fight was over, yet the psychological war had just begun. Admiral Xylos, a being whose reputation was built on cold, unbreakable military logic, stood motionless on his bridge. His eyes, normally sharp and calculated, were wide with confusion. He had personally led hundreds of successful military campaigns against over 30 species across the known galaxy. He knew the sweet taste of victory. But today, his mouth tasted only of ash and bitter regret. The powerful, clawed hands of the Admiral were gripped tightly to the console, betraying a fear he absolutely could not rationalize. The numbers flashed clearly on the main holographic display, confirming the Krill triumph. The Krill Empire's mighty fleet, designed and engineered for galactic dominance, had lost a truly negligible number of ships, barely 7 cruisers. The human defense, a new and minor species, was completely gone. They lost everything. Over 1 million soldiers, their entire orbital defense network, and every piece of functioning equipment on the planet's surface. A normal, total, and predictable win. But Xylos felt a profound sickness. He felt like he had just conquered a barren tomb, and in doing so, had invited a plague onto his own ship. The Admiral ordered his officers to run the data on the final minutes of the battle a third time. It was the human general, Commander Rion, who was the source of his profound unease. Rion had behaved against all logic. When the Krill offered the standard terms for surrender to save civilian lives, Rion refused. When the Krill forces closed in on his final fortified bunker, the general did not try to escape or negotiate. Instead, he made one final, theatrical, and deeply disturbing statement to the entire Krill network. The Krill translation software struggled violently with the obscure, thousands of years old human dialect. The final message was not a threat, not a plea, and not even a simple curse on their souls. It was a single phrase, repeated relentlessly until the bunker was vaporized by orbital fire. The phrase was just 2 ancient words: Carthago Delenda. Xylos stared at the foreign script, feeling a cold knot form in his stomach. What was this Carthago? Why would a dying species fighting with plasma rifles cling to a reference that was literally older than the Krill Empire itself? The Admiral immediately commanded his entire central database to execute a deep dive into the history and psychology behind those 2 simple, terrifying words. He needed to understand the mind of the enemy he had just eliminated. The historical records that returned made his 3 hearts stop beating for a horrifying moment. It was not a religious phrase or a mythical concept. It was a reference to total, absolute, unconditional destruction and a historical refusal to simply accept defeat. Xylos instantly knew the truth. He hadn't won the war. He had just awakened a psychological nightmare. He now feared the power of the human will and their terrifying historical precedent more than any weapon they could ever build. The great Krill Empire had always built its entire military doctrine on cold, unquestionable logic and overwhelming data. When they prepared for the conquest of human Planet 7, their military scientists had studied human technology flawlessly. They knew the limitations of their power cores, They knew the frequency needed to jam their communications, but in their supreme arrogance, they made one critical, unforgivable mistake. They completely ignored human history and the species' profound, ancient capacity for self-destruction. To the Krill, war was simply a question of logistics, resource management, and profit. A war was meant to be quick, efficient, and profitable. You fight until the cost begins to rise too sharply, and then you negotiate a logical surrender. You save your people, you live to fight another day, and you protect your assets. Commander Ryan and the entire human defense force, however, saw the war through a terrifyingly different historical lens. Ryan decided that if he could not win the battle for the planet, he would win the permanent war for the Krill mind. Ryan knew the mathematics of the battle were impossible. His defense ships were old, his soldiers were tired, and his resources were critically low. So Ryan decided to abandon the idea of military victory and instead focus on securing a devastating psychological one. He chose not to fight for short-term victory. He chose to fight to create a permanent historical memory in the galactic community. To do this, he didn't unveil a new superweapon. Instead, he reached deep into the darkest chapters of humanity's past and pulled out a simple, brutal, and completely devastating tactic known in the history books as the Scorch. His orders were carried out with silent, devastating efficiency. Every single vital resource, every major fuel depot, every massive water treatment plant, every food storage warehouse, and every heavy manufacturing factory was rigged to be detonated by the humans themselves. The Krill would take the planet, but they would inherit nothing but a barren, radioactive shell. This victory would be a Pyrrhic victory, a victory so expensive that it was strategically worse than a major defeat. Ryan ensured that when the Krill looked at their prize, they would feel only overwhelming regret and pain. But the ultimate weapon was the historical lesson Ryan gave to his troops in their final hours. He told every soldier the grim, powerful tale of Carthage. He explained that the ancient Romans were so consumed by their terrible rage and fear that they were not satisfied with simply winning the war. They completely erased their enemy from existence and poured salt into the earth to ensure nothing would ever grow again. Ryan wanted his soldiers to feel that ancient, terrifying, and uncompromising rage. He transformed them from simple soldiers into terrifying symbols of historical fury. The Krill ground forces landed with supreme confidence, expecting a standard, predictable resistance that would eventually buckle under their superior firepower. Instead, they found an army prepared to annihilate itself in its home with a zealotry that defied all known military logic. The humans were not protecting their lives or property. They were protecting a terrifying historical principle. They were fighting to make the Krill fear not their guns, but the absolute, unforgiving truth of what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. The Krill were ready for a fight, but they were not ready for an army that had completely given up on survival. The final ground battle for Planet 7 was not a tactical clash of equals. It was a devastating collision between two entirely opposing philosophies of war. The powerful, technologically advanced Krill fought with high-tech laser rifles, massive armored vehicles, and highly coordinated military formations. The desperate, determined humans answered with simple, salvaged machine guns, crude homemade explosives, metal knives, and the final terrible force of pure, unwavering willpower. This was not a clean military campaign for resources. It was a brutal, messy, and deeply personal demonstration of absolute resolve. One elite Krill assault battalion, the hardened 33rd Shock Trooper Division, advanced confidently into the main massive city dome. They expected the final pocket of human resistance to either retreat into the tunnels or attempt a desperate last stand in the center square. But the humans again chose the most illogical, the most historically devastating option. As the Krill battalion entered the dome, the remaining human engineers sealed the massive, heavy outer blast doors, trapping the entire Krill force inside. The Krill watched in disbelief as the hundreds of human soldiers who were now sealed in with them began to smile. A quiet, terrifying human smile. A final, chilling transmission was broadcast across the city's internal comms. A clear, resolute voice of Commander Ryan speaking directly to the trapped Krill. Moments later, the humans purposefully overloaded the city's central fusion power core. The Krill saw their own scanners spike wildly as the humans stood in the open, not running, their faces grim, but powerfully serene, just moments before the city dome turned into a giant, self-detonating bomb. The humans willingly died, but they successfully took an entire Krill battalion and a massive strategic asset with them. It was a trade, a brutal, self-sacrificing trade, that the Krill's cold military logic simply could not process. The cost was astronomically, unacceptably high. Admiral Xylos, normally a picture of military control, began to shout desperate, confused orders on the bridge. His soldiers were not just fighting biological life forms, they were fighting a terrible dark shadow of history itself. The humans were not following any known rules of engagement. They were not retreating or breaking under fire. They were fighting with a desperate, reckless, and unforgiving violence that the Krill thought only existed in the darkest, forgotten myths of the ancient cosmos. The Krill realized, too late, that they were not facing an army. They were facing a terrifying, self-destructive force of nature that was prepared to erase its own existence to deny them victory. Finally, after hours of unimaginable and senseless loss, the Krill managed to break into the deep, final level of the command center. Commander Rion was there, alone, sitting at a simple desk with a small, worn, cloth-covered book resting beside his hand. He did not lift his gun. He did not beg. He simply looked straight into the lens of the surviving command camera, which was broadcasting directly to Xylos's bridge in orbit. With a voice that was both weary from war and terribly powerful, Ryan spoke his final, definitive message, a final dedication to his planet's sacrifice. He had lost his home, but he had successfully won the war for the Krill's soul, Carthago Delenda. The planet was now a ruined monument, but the crippling fear was perfectly and permanently planted. The fighting was finally over. Planet 7 was officially secured and brought under the full control of the Krill Empire. But Admiral Xylos knew the simple, devastating truth. They had not won anything of value. They had gained a wasteland of ash, radioactive rubble, and profound sorrow. The planet was so meticulously destroyed by the humans themselves, from the water reserves to the deepest ore mines, that it would take the Krill decades and astronomical resources to make it usable. The Krill had paid for this so-called victory with the valuable lives of hundreds of their elite shock troops, and critically, they had gained zero strategic or economic profit. Xylos finally fully understood the terrifying brilliance of Commander Ryan's strategy. The humans had lost their home, but they had perfectly won the long-term, galactic-scale psychological war. Admiral Xylos spent the next several operational cycles writing a highly sensitive, confidential report to the Krill High Council. In this crucial document, he deliberately did not use the standard military classifications for the species he had just defeated. He refused to call the humans a minor threat or a strategic target. Instead, he coined a new horrifying category in the Krill Military Codex. He officially labeled the human species the historical terror. The name, carrying the weight of the Planet 7 destruction, quickly spread fear throughout the highest levels of the Krill command structure. His final, powerful warning to his entire vast empire was stark, unforgettable, and simple. Do not ever fear their rockets. Do not ever fear their plasma shields. Those are simply technological problems that can be solved with superior mathematics. But you must fear their past. You must fear the awful, relentless, and unforgiving things they have willingly done to themselves on their small, ancient blue world. Their history is not a gentle record of events. It is a meticulously detailed weapons manual for total, desperate, and suicidal self-destruction. Xylos ensured that his devastating report would be mandatory, permanent reading for every single Krill fleet commander for the next 1,000 years. The Battle of Planet 7, the final bloody Krill victory, was immediately turned into the ultimate, dark, foundational lesson in every Krill military academy. Humanity was no longer viewed as a new or minor species to be easily defeated. It was seen as the most dangerous and unpredictable psychological threat in the entire galaxy. They taught a new, simple, and powerful strategic rule that every soldier had to memorize. You can successfully defeat a human army in the field. You can easily destroy a human city from orbit. But you can never, ever defeat human history, because it is a source of limitless, suicidal, and unstoppable will that defies all logic. And because of this single terrifying battle, even today, in the darkest, most distant sectors of the galaxy, the terrifying whisper of Carthago Delenda is still heard among the Krill forces. It is the chilling sound of a devastating battle that finally made the aliens realize they had encountered the one species whose greatest, most terrifying weapon was not a futuristic superweapon, but their ancient, unforgiving, and completely self-destructive past. The memory of Planet 7 ensures that every Krill commander now thinks 100 times before ever engaging humanity again. Did this story of human determination and historical terror send powerful shivers down your spine? If you love sci-fi where humans defy the impossible odds and remind the galaxy of their brutal, ancient power, please show your support and smash the like button right now. We publish new thrilling HFY stories and unique sci-fi narratives every single week. You definitely don't want to miss the next amazing chapter of humanity's story among the stars. So, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. What other dark and terrible parts of our human history, like the devastating strategy of Carthage, do you think would be the most terrifying weapon to show an unsuspecting alien empire? I want to hear your ideas. Let me know your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section below.